Hello, hello, hello. I want to talk about narcissism, and I see that most people in the world are narcissistic, almost everyone, to a degree at least, and they are selfish. And it's the ones that are the most narcissistic and selfish that condemn narcissism and selfishness. So that's what I observed. We are we humans are not different to the other species, okay? Narcissism and selfishness is a survival mechanism, okay? We have to groom ourselves, we have to love our bodies, okay? We have to protect our babies, we have to protect ourselves. So this is very, very infinitely important. And of course, the mother love for her child, that's not narcissism, that's not selfishness, that's altruism. Okay, so I just want to talk about these different concepts and mental states and what they mean and what we need that for. So the most important thing is altruism, of course, which means and it's not the opposite of egoism, which is selfishness. It's not the opposite of it. Okay, people always create these polarizations between the different concepts. Okay, they are often not opposites. So, and I want to explain to you what I mean by this. Altruism, mother love, father love, love in general has no boundaries. Love is a universal truth. It's infinite truth. It is the infinite cosmos. Okay, that's the energy of the infinite cosmos. Okay, is compassion, empathy, looking after the other, giving your life to save another life. That's real love. Not doing that out of wanting something in return, not doing that out of a religion, not doing that to get a reward in the afterlife. This is just an idea that has been put into people. Okay, those are just ideas and they cling to it. Okay, that has nothing to do with the infinite cosmos. The infinite cosmos is about genuine love and compassion and empathy. That's what I'm trying to convey in my videos as much as I can. And so altruism is really the highest good. But be careful, don't do altruism don't do what Mother Teresa did. She has completely misunderstood what love is, in her Mother Teresa human lifetime. She came back as a dog afterwards. I'm not going to get into this now. Okay. That was necessary for her to learn, but I don't think it was, that's what she thinks, but I don't think it was necessary for her to do this, and she caused all of us a lot of pain, a lot of pain. Okay. She caused me a nervous breakdown, and it added to my panic attack in 2012. But I'm not going to get into this now. So, oh, it's such a long story. I don't even I don't even know how to start with this one. Maybe I'll talk about this in another video. This is very highly metaphysical. So for anyone who's not into metaphysics, it's not going to be interesting for you, or it might even be scary for you a little bit frightening. So, but right now I just want to talk about empathy and compassion, and it is definitely not out of a religious belief that Jesus is going to love you if you do this, okay? Because then it's no longer love and empathy. Do you understand it? Do you see the difference? I mean, I'm talking to the people who are confused out there, the religious people and so on. The people with ideologies and who believe that they're going to be rewarded. I just want to make this very clear to you that if you do something in order to get good karma, to get good karmic points, you know, to get your savings account of good karmic points up, you know. So that's not love and compassion. That's a complete misunderstanding. My husband's mother has done that, and it caused her unimaginable suffering towards the end of her life because she gave in to crooks and people who took total advantage of her. So my husband has learned a real hard lesson by his mother's negative example. And then he taught me, because I have never been taught anything from my parents, and neither has my brother. And it's not their fault, they don't know better. They meant really well, they really meant well. They did everything for us, and then when we're thrown into the real life, we don't have a clue on how to do anything. So that's not how things work. And I really get it, what Warren Buffett said when he said that most people don't teach their children anything about money, the value of money and business and keeping your life together. They don't teach their children before they're already late in their teens. My parents never taught us, ever, because they don't know about it. Okay, so. And Warren Buffett said that you need to teach your children from basically very early on, like already starting when they go to school, you know, at age 6. It should already start. You know. They should have understandable, fun, interesting sessions, learning sessions, education, you know, with lots of different kind of tools. There are video games for that also, for children that are going in that direction, you know, like, I don't know, Monopoly, those type of video games, or play games, table games, or whatever, you know. So where they learn, okay, there is a monetary value in things, and that I need to keep this together, that I can't just be throwing it around. So I can't just be going into any store and just buying the whole store and my entire savings account so that people will like me, I don't, in school or social parties or whatever. So that I need to keep my money together. So this is very infinitely important. When the parents don't know about this, when they have lived like they are just squandering their money all their life, then, and they have never learned it, how can they pass that anything of monetary value onto their children? They can't. So Warren Buffett is probably like the other extreme, you know. What makes him obviously happy is his step granddaughter Nicole said that. She said the meaning of his life is making money, and he shouldn't be taking offense to this. You know, he took so much offense to her saying that he disowned her. How sad is that? You know, how neurotic is that? So, okay, that's not the way to go about things. Warren Buffett, your step-grandchild Nicole and her twin sister, they love you, and they will always love you no matter what. So, and you put your ego above love. Yeah. So for anyone, whether it is someone who is a tightwad, who only lives for accumulating money and doesn't even spend any of it, or someone who is on the opposite extreme, as Robert Kiyosaki. Is that his name? Robert Kiyosaki? Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki. He's a finance counselor and motivational coach and investor. And he said the poor father has the expensive car and the rich father has the old used car. It's true. But then there comes a point also where either one can go into an extreme. So we have to, and it goes into an extreme when people are neurotic. Okay, so when there's an emotional imbalance, and that's when there's emotional pain. Okay, emotional pain from childhood. Some people have a golden hand. Some people have more of this money value genetically also, but it doesn't go into full gear if the person has been infinitely loved by their mothers and fathers and lived with fairness and respect and kindness around him. So then they don't because this money hoarding is a defense mechanism. Just like narcissism is a defense mechanism that kicks into gear when the person has been traumatized with the mother not loving him, not loving her child, her boy or her girl. So, and they grow up later on to use the specific, genetic funnels that they bring into the life. This seems to be just like anyone has a talent for something. It's a specific funnel that they will then use in order to defend themselves. Okay. So I see society very, they make judgments on things that are actually good. Like, for example, when someone is grooming himself, and a healthy person, a healthy animal, grooms himself or herself. So also the animal that has been loved. So an animal who has not been loved so much, if they go into a narcissistic behavior as a form of defense mechanism, they may be over grooming. They may be licking their paws too much, in order to comfort themselves. I've seen this. I've seen it in animals. I've seen it in humans. I see it in myself. I groom myself a lot, and I'm obsessed with cosmetic and perfume oils and clothes and bath and hot springs and anything, massages. I'm obsessed with. If I had money, I would have 2 or 3 hours of massages every single day because I need it so desperately. It can also save our lives. It really can. Those are healthy addictions. And I also love really good food. I love gourmet, whole vegan food. That is very good for me. That's good for us. I take supplements and I take very good care of myself. And I recommend that to other people as well. I'm overweight, but I still consider myself in that range of healthy, I don't know if it's healthy weight, but it's still a range of healthy living. So still within the range. Most people, most nutritionists would laugh and say, well, that's not healthy to be that much overweight, 5'9", and weigh 230 pounds. So no, I should weigh, at 5'9", I should weigh something like 150 or 160, and I'm more than that. But yeah, that's probably true, because it causes cholesterol and all of these things. And it's probably also a little bit difficult on the liver. So, but, if I went any higher than that, if I went to 240 or 250, that's already way over the limit. And that's when it becomes a health hazard. It's like red bar across, like total health hazard. That's like someone who is that much overweight, someone who goes towards 300, even if someone is tall, like between 5'9" or 6 feet, it's 300 is danger. It's definitely danger, and if people do this over a prolonged time, yeah, they're gonna pay a very high price for this. So it will definitely be better for me to weigh 150 or 160 pounds. So, and then for, depending on your height, and also depending on your body frame, some people have a bigger body frame than others. So I don't know where I'm at with this, probably somewhere in the middle. I'm maybe a little heavy, I don't know. But I have Neanderthal in me. And I have a very long back also. Backs way more than legs. So, but yeah, I still consider this, and that's why I'm paying very close attention that I am not going over that limit. If I let myself go with that, I would definitely in no time reach 300. If I was ever carrying out a child, I would become, I don't know, it would be very, very dangerous. I would become 400 pounds. No, I also, it's like, I don't want that. I don't want to cause another existence. But that's what happens, to a lot of women. So there's a there's a healthy grooming, okay, that we do when we have received love. There are beings that also go into a shock state, into a depressed state. That's the worst thing there is. They don't groom themselves anymore. And that's a that's the most unhealthy state there is. That causes immune dysfunction. That's the worst. So you have to love your bodies. You have to groom yourselves. Never say something negative about your bodies. Never, ever, ever say something like this. There was a film, What the Bleep Do We Know? I don't know if you guys have seen that film. That was many years ago. So it's probably the full documentary film is probably on YouTube. And there's also a film, On the Way into the New Dimension by Clemens Kubi. That's another documentary film that ties also into the subject metaphysics, taking care, healing yourself. You're healing old trauma and wounds. Very important. So, but in the film, What the Bleep Do We Know? These people like Dr. Masaru Emoto and other people were interviewed, and they talked about energetic fields and how energy is expressed even in water droplets, and how we are made mainly out of water. So water plays an enormous role in our well-being, in our health. You have to hydrate yourselves. That's probably the most important thing right after breathing. Breatharian exercises, meditation, the most and the most important. There are yogis that receive water from the infinite cosmos when they go into real deep breatharian meditation. And there's one that has practiced this and has shown the world, but the skeptics don't believe it. They wouldn't believe it if it happened right in front of their eyes. They would, because they're in resistance. They can't accept this because it goes against what they have learned. So a skeptic has also been brainwashed, you know. So we need to be a little bit more skeptical about the skeptics in this way, because things in the world they are not set in any kind of doctrine. They are not frozen in time. They are not frozen in space. They are not written in stone. Nothing is written in stone. Everything is in a constant flow, constantly evolving, becoming, merging, colliding, constant interactions and movements and patterns and pattern formation and so-called seemingly random pattern formations. There is stuff going on all the time. And it's wonderful, and it's not scary. You know, we shouldn't be afraid of it. It's a wonderful thing, and we need to embrace this. So self-love is infinitely important. You know, breathing, drinking, nurturing ourselves. Touch is non-sexual touch. Yeah, the last part is all good, okay? That can happen, but it should happen in a context of kindness and love and support, right? So that's what most people don't seem to understand. Okay. So nurturing, touch, love, hug, you know, without the agenda of any of these other dominating and sexual or whatever, the neurotic sexual, any of these kind of things. So I'm talking about just a real love and compassion between two living beings that give each other support and love. I had a very neurotic boyfriend once, and I was neurotic too. I didn't know how to deal with him at all. That's a long time ago. I don't know how he's doing. He's probably, I could imagine if he continued living the way he was living, he might not even be alive anymore, because, I don't know, he'd be close to 60 now, and he'd be complete alcoholic, wrecked himself. So, but back then, and he said very disturbing things to me, and almost a little bit, I don't know what it was, he felt unempowered, and out of this unempowerment, he wanted to drown out his pain, so he read some real cruel stories, and he wanted to share that with me. And for me, it was just a psychogram, you know. I read this one page, I was appalled. And I looked at him and I didn't know what to say. I said, this is horrible, horrible. Why are you reading this? So a very troubled person, and he also wanted to play dominating games with me, and I was so naive. And then he said, "You're too good for me. I don't deserve you." And I didn't know why he was saying this. It didn't make any sense. And then I think he was jealous also that I had so much compassion, that I still had some kind of life in me, some kind of self-love in me, and some kind of sanity. And he was probably jealous of that. He felt so lost and so confused, and in such a need for dominating someone else, because he felt so unempowered. So he also wanted to control me. Back then we were all hippies and punks and into heavy metal and all of this, and everyone was sleeping with the other person, crisscross all the time. I was pregnant 3 times. I don't even know who the father was. So it was not a good time in my life, for sure. I learned from it in a negative way. I learned from it that's not how we should be living our lives. So, and that guy probably also, he felt like, he didn't own me. I was my own person. I was sleeping with whoever I wanted to, and he was too. And I didn't control him, but he tried to retaliate by trying to deliberately make me jealous. And that didn't really work. Then he had to be more cruel with words and actions, and he ran away from me. That was not the only one. There was another one who was also completely berserk. There were a bunch of really berserk ones. But this one guy in particular, I don't know. There was something about him. He was an animal in his former life. I have probably met him before. And a stagnator soul, still in the very beginning stages. And so one night we came home not home, he was staying at some guy's office. And there were these benches that were stored there in this room. It was very uncomfortable, but just wanted to be with him, hold him. And so I was lying down. He was like so exhausted from drinking and smoking and bar and tired, and it was the summertime or something. And I was lying behind him on that bench, and I just put my arm around him, and I'm gonna cry again, because it felt like putting my arm around a dog, an exhausted dog. I put my arm around him, and I put my face into his back, because I don't know why I love this guy so much. I liked the way he smelled, and I liked the spaghetti hair, and he was pudgy and like that dough man. And so he was so cuddly. So I put my arm around him, and we fell asleep like this on that uncomfortable bench. And he was nicer to me when we got up. He looked at me more like a friend. And I don't know, like a week or two later, he said to me, "It was nice the way you held me that night. It was nice." And that was probably the only time when he's ever said something real. you know, that came from his inner person. So I wish him the best, you know, for his life. I hope that he heals his wounds. That's all I can say. And you know, that's why I want to establish therapy centers around the world. Not me, it's not about me. Like, I want us to establish therapy centers around the world. Create it. I have no idea how to create this, you know, with all this suing that people are doing and ruining people's kind-hearted attempts to help, and all this, the laws standing against us with this, the pharmaceutical industry having their feet and hands in this entire business, you know, running things basically because they want people to be miserable so they come and get their drugs, you know. So, but that doesn't help the world. What helps the world is if we help someone like that boyfriend of mine, and everyone out there, every person, the majority of people out there that are desperately needing someone to just put their arm around them without an agenda. Just like an animal, you know, like a dog in a shelter. It's the same thing like that guy, Michael. Same thing. You know, you go, you put your arm around that dog, or Michael, or Andreas, or David, or anyone out there. So, dog, human, dog, human, dog, human. We're all the same. And you put your arm around the living being, you put your face against his back, you smell him or her, and you say, I love you, without an agenda, without wanting that being to please you or serve you or do anything for you. You just, you know, you're there for that being. And if we can practice this, we can make the world a better place. If we can practice this. If we can try it out. What happens if you try it out? What would happen, you know? What's the worst thing that would happen? Maybe your childhood pain would come up. It wants to come up because it wants to flush out of your system, and it wants to talk to you. It doesn't want to be held further in suspension, where it causes a lot of trouble and a lot of beating against the prison cell. You need to open that prison cell of yours and let the pain flush up and talk to you. And you need to talk to the pain and say, I'm sorry. It's also your inner child. It's also your ego. And you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry you suffered so much. That's horrific. Let me hold you in my arms. Those are very abstract and mental exercises, but they're extremely powerful. We can give this a little bit more substance and concreteness if we paint, you know, or if you can take your teddy bear and hold your teddy bear and say that to the teddy bear. Envision the teddy bear is that suffering inner child, or your doll, or your love doll. You can do that with these more concrete things to give this a little bit more of an example of a literal meaning, in order to understand the metaphorical meaning behind it. I hope that makes a lot of sense. So people condemning selfishness and narcissism is in itself mental illness again. And that's what we need to pay such close attention to. Almost all of us are mentally ill. And out of this mental illness come an enormous panel of different act outs, different beliefs, religions, ideologies, childhood beliefs that we have been told that don't function at all, that are not true. Like thou shalt not, there's a lot of that going on, and a lot of this shaming going on. Shaming is mega, you know, throughout generations, generations after generations after generations, and it goes on and on and on and on and on until we question it, and then it stands still for the first time. You question it and it goes into a stop. And it's right at your fingertips. Okay? It's in your power. You have that in your hand. You have that power in your hand to make that perpetual suffering cycle stop. Okay? You can do it. By not giving into it, by not passing that on to your children or other people, by not repeating it mindlessly, what other people have told you, but by questioning it. For the very first time, that stops right there with you and every one of us. Okay? Every one of us has to bring this to a halt. And in that moment, we stand above this entire picture. In that moment, you are no longer a prisoner within that mind state, religion, ideology, group, whatever. You stand outside. And that's a good thing. It's scary for a lot of people because it feels scary to be standing outside the community with this. See, the power of suggestion, it's like the more people adhere to a specific thing, the more it snowballs into a leverage over people's minds. But that doesn't make it more legitimate, that doesn't make it more true. Quite the opposite. For me, it's almost a rule of thumb, like if something becomes popular, I immediately question it. I turn it inside out, upside down. I check out every niche and cranny and pocket. I turn all these pockets inside out of social norms. And maybe in the end, I can say, yeah, okay, I can accept that. Doesn't mean I have to adhere to it, but I can say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then it's okay. We don't need to make a religion out of it. Right? Like for example, the Buddhists have a lot of stuff that makes sense. They say meditate, breathe. Yeah, I can say makes sense. When it becomes a fad, I do question it though. I have to shake it all upside down. And then I go, all right, let me investigate it. I see what they're talking about. And then, oops, yeah, I find some false coins in those pockets. I always do. The breathing, yes, it works. We don't need Buddhism for that, okay? The Anapana, which is Sanskrit, it's actually very kind of goes in the religious direction, but it's an entire language, actually. So, but there's a lot of truth in Sanskrit, of course. Anapana, the breathing exercises, the deep breathing, and loving oneself and loving all beings. But we don't need to make a religion out of it. So here's the false coin in Buddhism. When people misunderstand something and something the Buddha never said, you know, and the Buddha never said that everything is relative, that doesn't matter what you do. He never said that. He said, he was the greatest philosopher of all times. He said that compassion and kindness and love is the ultimate good and truth, and we need to end suffering. And it takes each person to do it, and not by holding the other cheek, not by saying everything is relative, let them just all battle each other to death. That's what some people think. So they go, oh, I'm just going to lean back and let the world just battle themselves to death. No, that's not what the Buddha said. It takes every single person to contribute their help to make the world better, so that we can end the suffering, so we can end the wars, the fights, the civil wars, and the horror and the terror. We can end this. We can end the animal agriculture. The Buddha said not to deal with these kind of things. The Buddha said to never eat another living being. Okay? Eating another living being is murder. Don't do it. That is the human ape's task. Now, you can say, as the human ape, you can say, well, the other animals, they do it. Well, they cannot understand. The other beings, they have evolved, big cats have, and wolves, and dogs. Some dogs can live vegan. Some, I've seen this now. Okay, they have evolved with us together in this. But like, I don't know, German Shepherds. I don't know about German Shepherds, but because or Huskies or Malamutes, they are closer to the original wolf. They probably can't be vegan. I don't know. So, and wolves can. So, their bodies still require it, for nutrition. But the human absolutely can gradually become vegan, not overnight. Okay, gradually. The very first thing is, do not eat mammals anymore. No more mammal. No more cow, dog, pig, human, horse, rat. Do not eat mammals, the ones that nurse. Whales and dolphins are mammals. They are not fish, they are mammalian nature. They have mammalia, they have breasts, they nurse. Okay, so highly evolved beings. A lot of people don't know that. The whales are more evolved than humans. They had at least 1 or 2 billion, I don't know, billion, million, couple of million more years of evolution under their belt. So than the human lineage. It's true, because I researched all of this. I watched these documentaries, absolutely fascinating. They have much larger brains also in terms of brain-body ratio. They have much more evolved cortices. That means the neocortex convolutions, the gyri and sulci, and the spindle cells, the gray matter that is there for all kinds of connections to be made, all the way across the entire coordinate system of the brain. Many more connections that are made. also much higher potential for creativity and philosophy and thinking into infinity, on passion, kindness. They're absolute role models on that. They just live in a different medium, and because of that, people like my dad, or the Rotary Club, or the Club of Rome, or religious people, or anyone out there, or scientists also, most scientists, they'll say, oh no, how do you measure it? Well, you definitely don't measure it from our centrist view. So if they live in a completely different world and medium and elements, okay, they live in the element water. We live in the element air, oxygen, and gases. So completely different. They're more buoyant. They have much less gravity in the medium water. We live on land, dealing with gravity all the time, which is very difficult. People need to become aware of this, of all of this, and never ever eat another mammal again. Okay. So that's the first step. Then you can still eat poultry, you can still eat chicken, and